Hi everyone. I wanted to come and do a quick video for information on grooming because with golden doodles it's so important. These guys can mat really easily and it's just not a good situation when it mats. When it mats, that just means that the hair underneath the top layer of their fur has matted or gotten knotted, and it can get really close to the skin and it pulls the skin and it does create tension on the pup's fur and it hurts. So I wanted to go over some basic tools that you guys are going to need regardless of how often you take your dog to the groomer, because I've learned the hard way that accidents still happen and things happen. The pups get matted regardless of how often you do go to the groomer. So these are things that you're going to need to figure out in between grooming sessions. And so I've learned to groom the dogs myself at home. I can do a full groom on my own, but I still opt to take them to the professional groomers every so often because it is helpful. It's good for the dog to get that shape and to get used to going to the groomer. It is a good thing for them. And you want to make sure that you're doing everything right. Like I said, mats can happen so quickly that it's just best to go to a groomer every 6 to 8 weeks, honestly. So what you will learn when you bring your puppy home is that puppies actually don't mat. They probably won't have their first mat until they're about 10 months old. Around that time, maybe even a little earlier, their puppy fur turns into their adult fur. And in that transition, crazy things can happen and pups can mat like in an instant. And so you are going to need at least two very important things at your home. And this is a slicker brush. We got the We Love Doodles slicker brush at the Ghana conference and I'm obsessed. It is amazing and it's very affordable. We have a couple other brushes that I've spent a good chunk of change on and they're great, they work, but for the price, this is wonderful. This gets out a lot of the knots without even needing to use a comb. But my second item that you absolutely do need is this comb. And what happens is first you brush the dog with this and you get as many of the top layer knots out as possible. Then you have to run the metal comb through the hair to make sure there's no knots underneath, because remember I said those mats happen on the bottom layer of the fur and they're going to be closest to the skin. So you really do have to double check with the comb every time you brush. How often do you have to brush? Depends on your dog, depends on how curly your dog is. Every week for sure. Every other day, sometimes every few days. It really depends on your dog, and you'll start to learn once they get that adult coat. You'll notice knots. A lot of times they happen behind the ears or on their toes, basically the bottom of the dog. So the legs and then the ears, and then the back is usually fine. Back you can go, every week without once a week grooming. So what happens when you get a mat, you guys? This can help. You can kind of pick at it and get that little knot out. If the knot is huge, which we've all been there, don't get upset if you find like a giant mat, because it happens. These scissors. So these are thinning shears is what they're called. You can see my brand. I think it's called, it used to be Good Pup. Now it's called Pupwell, and I will send you a link. She is a breeder herself and has created a grooming kit for doodles, and everything in her kit is amazing. I bought the mega kit, the ultimate one, and was super happy. In the kit, she provides these like videos too that educate you and teach you how to do a doodle cut. So anyway, these thinning shears will help you to take out a mat when you find it. All you do is when you've got the knot, let's say it's this little ball, you just get in there and you snip, 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 and then you take your comb and you're gonna brush out the extra hair. So, sounds easy, be careful. I have not had any accidents. I did cut Coco's toenail too short one time. That was scary, but luckily we've been good. Oh, I cut my finger on my own. Anyway, when we're talking about shears, another one that you're going to need for the eyeballs is this curved shear right here. You can find a really cheap kit on Amazon. In fact, I'll probably send a bunch of links to go with this video so that you can see what you do need. This curved shear is to use on the puppy's eyeballs. So you'll see here is where they get a lot of fur that grows out and into their eyes, and then you'll be like, oh my gosh, my puppy has no eyes all of a sudden. These curved shears are super easy. You just take one snip, go up around the eye, and then on the other side you may have to go down depending on if you're left or right-handed. In a kit, usually there's also a straight shear, and that's more for like the legs if you're gonna do a full body groom. So far you need a slicker brush, you need a comb, you need maybe some shears, like a cheap set. The only other thing, the good pup kit comes with nail clippers and a nail grinder. These are wonderful because some puppies, like some of my dogs, have nails that grow really fast and some of them don't. Some of them can go like in between, 6 to 8 week grooming and never need their nails clipped. But Macy for sure is like one that I have to do every other week or so because you can hear the like click, 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 click on the floor and it drives me nuts. You're gonna need, here's the process when you do a full groom, by the way. You brush them, you comb them, you make sure there are no knots whatsoever, and then you bathe them. What happens when you get a doodle wet is that they mat. And so if you already have a mat in the dog's coat when you go to give it a bath, and then you take it out and you dry it and you brush it and all that, you're gonna notice that mat that they might have had has gotten bigger and harder to get out of the skin. So always brush your doodle before they get wet. If you are not going to groom your doodle, but they are gonna go swimming, make sure that you have regular grooming appointments or you have a groomer that can get you in a second. Some groomers are booked way out, and when your dog gets wet, you need to get them groomed and brushed and dried right away. A high velocity dryer is what we use here. You can get away with a hair dryer for the first year. After that, it just takes so long to dry your doodle with a full adult coat. So that high velocity groomer or dryer is going to be a huge savior once you're trying to dry a full grown doodle. It's just a lot faster and it blows quicker. You can fluctuate the speed and the heat, and it's just a really nice tool to have. I will link that as well. Other tools I use, if you're going full groom, you're gonna need one of these guys. I use like this little blade at the bottom. I use this when I'm doing their paw pads, but then when I'm actually cutting their hair, you also need one of these. I can't remember the name of this. Blade, maybe. Clip guard, a guard, some sort of guard. That's what this is, and they have different lengths. I use as close to a 1 inch as I can on Macy. I used to be really picky and I wanted a 2 inch, but you will soon realize that the longer the dogs are, the harder it is to maintain their coats. So we do go down to like a 1 inch, maybe even a 3/4 inch at times. The last thing I have here to show you is this contraption. If you are giving baths or grooming on the floor or in the bathtub, This is a suction cup, and it will allow you to clip a leash or even like a shorter martingale grooming device. And that way your doodle cannot get away from you when you're trying to dry it or bathe it or brush it. You can click this to like a tile floor or a tile wall in your bathtub. I've even seen people use it on the counter when their puppies are small. They can just like keep them in there right on the table. So the last thing, I guess, would be this grooming table that I have everything on. I do have that as well, and that's just a huge help when I'm grooming them every week, every 2 weeks, when I'm brushing them and drying them and all the good things. Yes, once you get your doodle home, you're going to want to expose them as much as possible to at least these 2 items. When you introduce it, you give them a cookie and you don't even use it. You just say, hey, good job, buddy. And you let them sniff it, you let them lick it, you let them touch it, but you don't even use it. And that is great exposure too. The next time, maybe you do use it once or twice, but you give them a treat at the same time. So you're giving positive reinforcement to being around these guys, because unfortunately, doodles are going to be groomed quite a bit. That is part of the doodle ownership, is getting them happy and used to being groomed. I would say this too. This one's probably safer, a little bit easier to use. But that's all you'll need for puppies, is just these 2 basic things. And make sure you get your first grooming appointment in the books for like month 4 or 5. You definitely want to have all your vaccinations done. The last parvo vaccination should be done around 16 weeks, and that's when you should call your groomer and get an appointment. Does not have to be a haircut. You just say, hey, I want a bath and a puppy trim. That means they do the eyes and the feet and maybe the butt area, and that is it. And so your puppy has now been exposed and had a positive experience at the groomer at a young age, and can continue those grooming sessions as needed. All right, thanks guys.